You're welcome back from that quick timeout. If you're just joining us, this is Daybreak here from Trust Television, broadcasting live from the nation's capital, Abuja. If you're just joining us, well, you've missed quite a lot because we've had quite an educative conversation this morning, or rather discussion this morning, on the issue of flooding and, the release of water from Lagdo Dam and what is happening in Maiduguri. And flooding has been happening year in, year out in the country. It was quite a very educating conversation. But it's time to go to our newspaper review. This is a segment where we're going to look at stories that made it to the front pages of our newspapers. So kicking off, obviously, with Daily Trust. Right there on the Daily Trust newspaper on the front page, we have the first story that says NNPCL not usurping our powers. NMDPRA says it is not a regulator, cannot fix prices. Ipman looks out for official notification. FG can reduce costs by cutting taxes and deductions, says sources. Now, we also have the picture right there saying Alhaji Aminu Dantata visits Governor Babangana Zulum of Borno State over the recent flood and donates 1.5 billion naira. On the top there, we have federal government issues a flood alert as Cameroon opens Lagdo Dam. We've had that conversation on the show this morning. Still on the top there, federal government to split unity colleges into basic secondary schools. And on Maiduguri flood, Dantata donates 1.5 billion naira. NEDC 3 billion naira to victims. We still have lots of donations are going on right there. Now on the bottom, Onyekan flays FG's reforms, says middle class becoming poorer. Is there still middle class in Nigeria? And then we have Danjuma to service chiefs, no more excuses, end killings now. 4 died, 8 injured in Ogun road accident. And CBN to expand e-Naira for government transactions. Now, these are the stories we have on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. If you're looking for this and more, I'm sure you get them right there on the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, moving on to the next, we have The Guardian. Now, on The Guardian, we have World Patient Safety Day. Nigeria battles spike in medical errors, negligence in hospitals. After 8 chemo sessions, 25 rounds of radiotherapy, single mastectomy, cancer diagnosis turns out an error, says patients. After a mastectomy. Diagnostic errors responsible for 16% of patients' harm. Practitioners blame lack of standard infrastructure for quality care. We are a dumping ground for quackery, fake, substandard, unvalidated kits and services, says AMLSN president. Now, still there, Abuja in panic over vibrations from multiple earth tremor. This is also right there on the Guardian newspaper. Last GL, ASG, Lagos State government seeks accountability, says misdiagnosis costs patient 40% more. FRSC Act, the illegality of being accuser, persecutor, and judge. Then still on alert, Nigerians flood alert as Cameroon Lagdo releases water. We have all of that. And court rejects Lagos AG's move to stop 1.3 billion naira fraud case. And federal government to unbundle 115 colleges. We also have Clark Louds Dangote urges support for local refinery. Still on the front pages, Minister warns of 300 million youth unemployment in Africa, and scientists confirm new fast-spreading COVID variant. Okay. All right, that we have on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Now moving on to the Punch. Boldly there on the front page for the Punch newspaper on the Edo governorship poll, 35,000 cops arrive Edo as joint forces begin patrol. Military, NSCDC, EFCC personnel backed up police team. INEC tracks ballot boxes movement. Still on security, police parades 2,740 suspected kidnappers, others with 4,087 ammunition rounds. Still on the bottom left, PDP shifts NEC meeting over state Congress crisis. 3 Oyo students remanded for allegedly causing colleagues' death. And still on the flooding, FG alerts 11 states as Cameroon plans Lagdo release, already released it. Then on the top left, 20 governors borrow fresh 444 billion naira as revenue tumbles. 3 marketers to import 141 million liters of petrol, and how federal government earned 1.29 billion from telecom licenses, says Obasanjo. And then we also see right there, executive order, Tinubu eyes 2.5 billion naira, $2.5 billion investment. These are the stories we have on the front page. These are the front stories we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Now, to join us and talk about the stories on the front page of the newspaper, we have Ben Shemeng, former director of news, Voice of Nigeria, is joining us to review some of the headlines on the pages of today's paper. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Ben, if you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Now, let's go straight into starting off with the Daily Trust newspaper. Looking at this whole drama between NNPCL and Dangote and all the drama happening, right there boldly, NNPCL come to say not usurping our powers. Looking at the prices, FG can reduce costs by cutting taxes and deduction, telling NMPRA that they can't usurp their powers. It's not the regulator and cannot fix prices. What's your take on all the back and forth, given that Nigerians had hopes that Dangote refinery was going to bring cheaper fuel? And we saw what happened through the weekend with the different statements giving different prices and eventually ending up at almost 1,000 naira in some states, and in some states 950 and 999 naira. What's your thought on all that has played out so far when it comes to the petroleum industry in Nigeria?
Rightly, when Nigerians saw that Dangote refinery came on board, they were happy. And they thought that it was going to be all over in terms of shortages, in terms of crisis here and there when it comes to petrol supply or fuel supply. But it has not turned out to be so. Now, you're talking about NNPCL and some other government agencies now engage in altercation, government versus government, fighting themselves as to who is in charge of pricing, the other one condemning the other. This is happening, I believe, because there is no person called Minister of Petroleum. President Tinubu should not just believe that he's the Minister of Petroleum when indeed he does not even go there to take charge of affairs there. We cannot continue to have a Minister of State for Petroleum when this industry is suffering. I think it is a misnomer. It's appalled. It's just not it that these agencies are fighting when Nigerians are, in fact, living in squalor, in abject poverty. I think that it is wrong that these government agencies are busy fighting over who is supposed to regulate pricing of petroleum products.
All right. Thank you for your opinion on that. Now, let's look at the story that made it to the front page of Guardian that picked my attention. World Patient Safety Day. Nigeria battles spike in medical errors and negligence in hospital. Right below there was a story there that said someone went through after 8 chemo sessions, 25 rounds of radiotherapy, even went as far as doing a mastectomy. Cancer diagnosis turned out wrong. What's your take on this patient's misdiagnosis in the Nigerian health sector? Doctors have come out to say, it's due to lack of infrastructure and lack of hands because we have doctors that are leaving the country. You know, the health sector has a lot that's going on within it. We're looking at fuel and so many other things. People tend to overlook that aspect. What exactly is happening there? And what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think that in terms of standards, things are a bit going down. But notwithstanding, we have to pay also some credence, give some credence to some Nigerian doctors. There's a doctor who left UI here. He graduated from UI. He was in America, even though it's a long time, Obama days. Well, in working in America, he realized that the fetus, a baby, was still in the womb, but having some tumor in the brain. He said, look, I can bring out this fetus and we operate on the brain and send her back and they give birth normally. And that happened. It never happened in the history of humanity. And all that Obama could do was to just call the man and hold a small handshake quietly and privately. If it were an American, you could see the way they'll blow it out of proportion. So Nigerians are trying, irrespective of the fact that, yes, in terms of training facilities, we don't have enough. Therefore, given the facilities, we can do quite a lot. Look, we're talking of even the Federal Secretariat in Lagos those days. Why don't you turn it to a world standard hospital? Bring in the experts, pay them. They come and do any operation that is needed instead of this medical tourism we are seeing. And because of this high cost of everything, you could see people are just engaging in the self-help, just go across the counter, buy whatever. When you read anything in the internet, you feel that, oh, I can just go and fill in the symptoms. This is what I'll do. This is how I'll take my medication. It is wrong. And that's why people are now patronizing the herbal medicine. You see hawkers all over the place with loudspeakers telling you how this one whatever substance they are holding can take care of 5 or 6 ailments. So Nigerians are falling prey of that, buying all sorts of things, concoctions. You take them, you knock down your kidney, knock down your livers and the pancreas and all that stuff. So it has to do a lot in terms of standards. Who is also checking some of these things in the streets, in the motor parks? Quite a lot of things are wrong. And we have the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research. They've been doing quite a lot of research work, and nobody is giving them the money they ought to have to carry out most of this research. This disease you call the African disease, sickle cell, they are doing quite a lot in terms of research. They are Necrosan and all that, whatever they call it, I've forgotten, but Necrosan or something. They're doing quite a lot, but they don't have enough of the support that should come from government. So it says a lot in terms of healthcare delivery in the country.
All right, now moving away from healthcare, now we see this story on Onayek and Flay's federal government reform says middle class is becoming poor. Do we still have a middle class in Nigeria?
Honestly, when I had that headline, I started rocking my brain to find out where these middle class are. They have since been erased. There are only 2 classes in Nigeria. And if there are, let me say there are even 3. You have the very top there, then you have very low there, you call the masses, the proletariat. There's even what they call the lumpen proletariat, the very low of the low of the lowest. So they are the ones I know. In terms of middle class, I can't see them because it has been erased. Because whatever you think you have, one man will be taking care of people from his family, people from his wife's family, other relations. You wake up, all you see are messages, text messages. Some don't even talk. All I know is send a small 10,000, send 20,000. If it is small, why don't you have it? So it's a whole gamut of problems here and there. So I think that the middle class has since been erased and gone. But maybe someday, sometimes it could bounce back if the economy will come back.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ben Shemeng. It's been quite an interesting conversation with you right here, dissecting stories on the front pages of the newspaper. It's always been warm and a pleasure having you join us on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Always a great pleasure. Thank you.
That was Ben Shemeng, news director, Voice of Nigeria there, giving us his opinion on the front pages of the newspaper. Well, with that, I think we've come to the end, actually, of the daybreak this morning on Trust Television. Thank you so much for giving us access to your living room. Thank you for joining us on the show. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something home. I hope it was an interesting conversation for you this morning. Well, let's not forget that as Nigerians, we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the nations to be our brother's keeper. We owe it to Nigeria to do the right thing at every point in time. We all know the right thing to do. Let us not allow the mindset of, oh, it is Nigeria and we'll all be fine at the end of the day to make us, treat people a certain way or not do what we're meant to do. This Nigeria is only one and it belongs to all of us and we're all in it together. So please, let's put the right foot forward at all times and do the right thing. Well, with that, we've come to the end of the show this morning. At the top of the hour, we'll be bringing you sport with Adeni Ajishafer, and then we'll also have business and the news at the top of the hour. We have a whole lot packed for you today. So stay tuned. I'm your host, Lilian Ogazi. Thanks for watching and